Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments, and thank you for joining me. So I do want to take some time to comment on the perception of starry-eyed speculators, collectors, investors, when their favorite collecting category is pretty much in a downturn. And this is common across a lot of collecting categories. I saw this happen with the wonderful graded video game bubble. I've seen this happen in a lot of markets that have just headed into a downturn, meaning the market isn't as robust as it is. And sometimes you'll come across a post like this that I am going to read to you on a collecting forum. And this specifically deals with the current state of the vintage comic book marketplace. If you're unaware, the year 2024 was not very kind to the vintage comic book marketplace in general. Prices are down across the board. There's a lot of people upset that the market isn't where it really should be. As a matter of fact, both graded video games and vintage comic books were two of the worst performing pop culture collecting categories of 2024. And that trend is looking to continue in the year 2025. Now, it doesn't mean that vintage comic books and graded video games are going to zero, or they're going away, or no one's collecting those collectibles anymore. Again, I've said this before, if you're patient and you actually apply logic more than emotion to how you diversify capital to these markets, you can make money in these markets. Believe it or not, there's a lot of opportunity in both the graded video game marketplace and even the vintage comic book marketplace at present time. We've done videos on this. I did an overview of vintage comic books. If you're going to invest in that market, go after Bronze Age horror, Neil Adams Batman and Detective Comics from the 1970s. Certain Golden Age books still have a lot of potential. It's just a lot of your higher end Silver Age, Bronze Age keys have taken a beating because the market got a little bit too frothy. Now, let me read you this post that appeared on Reddit or Facebook. I can't remember which. I just want to address this in full. And the title of this is Prices Are Dropping Even More and More. And somebody wrote, everything is down, movie ticket sales, video game sales, theme park attendance, etc. People just don't have as much disposable income. If and when we see the economy bounce back, prices of vintage comic books will go up. I'm using this time to load up on books I've always wanted for my collection. Now, here again, I have to state this, and I mean no disrespect to this individual. I'm not going to even state his username or anything like that. I don't want to identify him. But this is a problematic mindset that I'm seeing in a lot of these markets that are down across the board at present time. People think it's not their market, it's the overall state of the economy. And I'm here to tell you there is a lot of uncertainty in the overall economy, but make no mistake, that's not why vintage comic book prices are down right now. And there's a lot of inaccuracies in this post. For instance, movie ticket sales are not down across the board. Video game sales are not down across the board. Theme park attendance has always been hit or miss, especially right now because we are in the month of February. So a lot of the country is in the winter if you live in the United States. So naturally, certain theme park attendance is going to be down across the board. That being said, though, it's not the economy, stupid. And I'm sorry that I have to word it that way, but if you look at other collecting categories that are on the up and up, for instance, those of you that follow the vintage toy action figure market, Hakes just hosted the Jeff Jacobs blue chip vintage toy collection, and prices hit all-time highs. So you can't have a market where prices are soaring and hitting all-time records and claim that just because your favorite collecting category is in the doldrums, it's obviously due to the economy. It doesn't work that way. If we get in my DeLorean time machine and we go back to the great financial crisis, 2008, 2009, prices on almost all collecting categories, whether they were blue chip antiques, artwork, rare coins, historical documents, firearms, comic books, collectible card games, video games, toys, whatever it was, they dropped roughly anywhere from 10 to 40% almost overnight because a lot of people were scared at the current economic environment that we found ourselves in. Even wealthy investors pulled back. When we look at vintage comic books, you can't look at that market in the current state of the economic environment that we find ourselves in and blame the economy because your favorite collecting category is down right now. There are other variables at play here, and I'm going to name some for you. First of all, during the pandemic, comic books soared to new heights. And a lot of people that invested and put down money on books at those all-time highs, they got burned. As a result, those particular collectors, speculators, investors, starry-eyed Timmies, Kimmies, Poindexters, whatever they were, they got burnt pretty bad. So they pulled back from investing in comic books. As a result, prices started to fall. Another factor at play here, and believe it or not, in this same comment thread that I'm reading this particular post from, somebody hit the nail right in the head. The problem is the downturn in the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, causing disinterest. That is part of this. I told you guys when I started this channel back in late 2019, eventually you were all going to tire of a lot of these comic book movies and TV shows that keep getting made to no end. And a lot of the speculation that was attached to those characters, people finally learned the truth. They would invest money in a lot of these characters and a lot of these first appearance comic books just because the character was going to make an appearance in the latest Marvel TV show or movie. And what would happen is after that particular character appeared on the big screen or on the TV screen, interest would die out and the price would start to drop. So people got tired of chasing after the next big thing. Disney really killed the golden goose with oversaturation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. DC did a much better job of handling their entry into this portion of the entertainment world. And I've said that before. I've said that many times on this channel. Make no mistake, Marvel is still making money as a result of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is still interest there, but it actually did start to hurt interest in prices of vintage comic books. And we're seeing this trend across the board. But that being said, you can't have one collecting category in the doldrums and another one soaring and blame it on the overall strength or lack of strength in the economy by and large. It's just like I get into this argument a lot. People come to me and they say, Sean, Pokemon's here to stay. I'm putting all my money in Pokemon. That's great. Right now, Pokemon is in a massive boom market for a lot of the modern era cards. But if you compare that to other collecting categories are also booming at present time. And some, much like vintage comic books, much like graded video games, if we look at traditional antiques aren't doing so well right now either. It's not because of the economy. These markets are more nuanced. You have to really take a micro look at some of these collecting categories. And again, it doesn't matter if you're on the antique side of the equation, which is rooted in history, or if you're on the pop culture side of the collectibles equation, which is rooted in nostalgia. There are reasons why certain collecting markets are soaring to new heights at present time, and others are in the proverbial toilet. And if you are unable to analyze these markets properly without just coming up with some basic excuse that, oh, it's because people just don't have disposable income because the economy's in the toilet. I'm sorry, there's no metrics that back up that statement at present time. Otherwise, all these markets, and potentially even the stock market and the real estate market, would also be in the toilet at present time. We're just not seeing that. The people that have money to invest in a $30,000 vintage toy, I'm quoting now the Jeff Jacobs collection, because there were several vintage Star Wars pieces that were AFA graded that soared to new heights in that auction sale that was held by Hakes. Those particular investors, they could easily spend that $30,000 on vintage comic books, but they're not for a reason, guys. Right there's your answer. That's how you have to analyze these markets. Now, again, before I end the video, if we do ever enter a major full-blown economic recession, yes, a lot of collectible prices, even antique prices, will pull back with few exceptions. During the 2008-2009 financial crisis, one of the markets that was hurt tremendously was the market for high-end art. And those of you that know that market, there's a lot of billionaires, there's a lot of people with very high net worths that play in that market. Yet there was a tremendous pullback because the billionaire class and the people that have the money to go after those 7, 8, 9, 10-digit paintings, they did not want to risk investing in that market at that particular point in time. But that was also in tow with what was happening overall across the board in almost all asset classes, including antiques and collectibles. This is why during the 2008-2009 financial crisis, believe it or not, lower valued, mass-produced collectibles did better than their vintage counterparts. Because the type of person that could spend $5 or $10 just to enjoy like a low value older comic book was more readily available than somebody that wanted to pull the trigger on like a $5,000 comic book, if you understand where I'm going with this. So I just want to state, be very careful if you have the attitude that it's always the fault of the economy. If one collectible market is in the toilet and another one is soaring to new heights, it's probably not the economy, stupid. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you are subscribed to this channel, I just might see you in another upcoming video.